This is Food for Thought with Deborah Walker. Today on Food for Thought I have Dr Daniel Keown, author of The Spark in the Machine, which shows that acupuncture pathways are simply the fascial pathways and the chi, the embryological energy that enables self-organisation. He's actually a fully qualified medical doctor who works mainly in emergency medicine as well. And in 2008 he completed a degree in Chinese medicine and acupuncture from the College of Integrated Chinese Medicine. Whenever possible, he uses acupressure in the emergency department, which I'm just amazed at. So welcome, Dan. Nice to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks. Great introduction. I use acupressure all the time, really. Even if it's just as a kind of a nice massage of their feet. It's just so simple, so effective, and I'd like more doctors to be able to use it.
I find it absolutely fascinating. So what specifically would you be doing with them, and what circumstances would you tend to use it?
So it depends. I mean, I use it according to the Chinese channel system. So the organs have, I see them as the organs have these natural planes of weakness in the body through which their energy escapes. And that's what the channels are. And the original title of the book was What God Forgot to Tell Surgeons. And every single doctor and medic I've said that to, with the exception of one, has absolutely loved that title. And the reason I called it that was because these fascial pathways that are actually acupuncture channels, surgeons use them all the time. When a surgeon operates, he will use these pathways to get to where he wants to get to. And but no one's ever pondered the question, hang on, why are they there? Especially not surgeons. And the reason they're there is they're not there for surgeons. They're there for the body to organise itself. That's what the acupuncture channels are. And
you started to become interested in this whilst you were studying in China?
No, actually, it goes way back. My grandma, she travelled around China when she was in her 80s, and I just figured that was normal. I remember my parents kind of being quite amazed by this. So my grandmother came back and she told me about acupuncture when I was 17, and as a result of that, I always had the intention of doing medicine, Western medicine, to do acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and then to try and create a synthesis between the two of them. So that's kind of what the book is, really. It's those 20 years of quite enjoyable investigation and research into how you can explain Chinese medicine in terms of Western medicine.
And you have gone into that in quite depth in the book, and it is quite a humorous book as well. I do laugh at times. Yeah. The links with Star Wars particularly I kind of hooked up with. But in chapter 6 you say that no word in the West has been so misunderstood as chi. Can you explain why?
Yeah. Well, firstly, it's just a mysterious word, isn't it? Chi. Even the spelling of it is kind of. I mean, I remember the first time I read The Web That Has No Weaver. I kept reading that as cure, ki. I didn't know how to even pronounce it properly, and so the spelling. It's unfortunate. It's spelt qi. It'd be better if it was spelt chi. But so firstly, there's the pronunciation. Secondly, it's been translated as energy, but energy isn't quite what it is. It's kind of. It's almost like there's a very good video by a guy whose name I forget about how qi is used in the Chinese language, because it's often combined with other words, and when it's combined in that way, it invariably means air or space, and so. For instance, the word for hovercraft is chi beng. I think that's correct. I might be wrong. My Chinese is awful. And the word for an air pump also involves chi. So it kind of is a word for air or space. And in the body, that space is where surgeons operate, and also where the fascial planes are, and it enables growth and enables movement and enables energy to flow, and so that's kind of why I think it's been so misunderstood, because it's not just energy, it's a philosophical construct.
So effectively you're saying it's far, far more than what science is often trying to pin it down to.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. What they often try and do is because science is very reductionist, and they often try and say that, okay, right, there's this stuff called qi in the body, you say, and Chinese go, yeah, that's right. Okay, we're going to find it. And they look for it, and they take apart the body, and they go, no, it's not there. It's not there. Sorry, And the thing is, it's not actually a substance. It's more of a philosophical construct. Qi. It definitely exists because there's no other way to explain how the embryo self-organizes, and this is something that if you talk to doctors about, you'll just almost be certainly be met with a blank look. But there has to be some energy in the body that enables the cell, a single cell, to organize itself into 10 trillion cells and everything we take for granted in good health. And so that's kind of what qi is. That's what the first part of the book is. Look, this is this energy, and there I use that word again, but it is qi. Qi is a better word for it. There's no easy translation.
Effectively like an intelligent force.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's like, in fact, yeah, intelligent metabolism I compare it with, or or space, and it's qi. I mean that's the thing. You can look at it more and get more and more of an understanding of what qi is. It's you can feel it in your body, and when it, disease invariably involves abnormal qi, and also electromagnetic radiation is very close to what qi is. So that's why like electromagnetism has to be treated with so much care, really, which I think we do anyway, actually, in society. Nobody suggests that you go and touch live cables, do they? Because they know it's dangerous.
So in many respects, can it be considered the same as life force?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's life force. And all the Chinese have done is they've just taken it a step further. Instead of just going, oh, there's a life force, then they've gone, yeah, there's a life force. Then they've gone, this is how it moves around the body. And they've gone, this is its relationships to various organs. And then they go even further, and they say, look, this is how you can nourish it, Tai Chi or Qigong, and this is how you can use the life force, the energy that moves through your body, to defend yourself, and that's what Tai Chi is. And then they say, and this is how physicians can manipulate this qi to make you better, and that's what acupuncture and theory is.
Now you refer to the collagen within, as you when you're talking through the book, and the electrical web, and it being a super substance.
Yeah. I mean, we just don't know a lot about this stuff. It's just very little research. I mean, for instance, when I was researching the book, I tried to research fascia and its electrical properties, and I found like one or two articles that this is in journals. This is one or two articles in journals. You imagine how many articles in journals are. Literally, it must be millions. And one of them just started talking about deep fascia and its electrical properties and stuff. And basically, at the end, it said, there's almost no research on this. We don't really know much about it. And this collagen is everywhere in the body. It's 30% of all the protein in your body is collagen. It surrounds everything. It's everywhere. And yet, there's almost no research on it. But one thing we do know about collagen is when you bend it, it creates a piezoelectricity. So it's the same as when you bend a spark in your cigarette lighter. When you bend the crystal in your cigarette lighter, you get a little spark. When you bend collagen in the body, you get a little electrical charge generated, and so every time you move, your body is producing electricity.
And I don't think the majority of people really understand how electricity is absolutely essential to life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you need, everything in the body is electrical. Even the cell membrane that keeps the inside of the cell in the right environment. It has a little electrical pump on the surface that constantly makes sure that you've got 140 millivolts between your inside and your outside. The heart uses electricity, the brain uses electricity, muscles use electricity. And electricity how I see chi as is like, in fact, no, how I see electricity as is concentrated chi. So chi is bigger than electricity, but electricity is an example of very concentrated chi in the body. So when in your heart, for instance, it's the most important organ and it's the most powerful electrical generator as well. And those two things are linked because that's where most of your chi is, in your heart.
I've not really thought about that aspect of it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's that's how I see chi. It's complex. It's there's a reason why 3,000 years of Chinese medicine has still struggled to fully explain what chi is. It's quite a complex kind of, I mean, we're talking about the mystery of life,
and that's fundamentally it, isn't it? And it's so essential, but it's so powerful that in early life it can actually regenerate parts of your body, which is actually what attracted me to the book in the first place. The whole thing about the salamander, that actually got me completely hooked into your book, I have to say. And the fact that it can be, in early life, you can regenerate parts of your body.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, children can regenerate the tips of their fingers. I mean, that's actually how I got the book off, because like when I was a kid, I can't remember this, but my mum had to go into the garden and have a look for my thumb tip that was lying there because I'd chopped it off with a chair, and then they sewed it back on again, and my thumb's never been quite right, which is kind of annoying because, like, as an acupuncturist, what I need to do with that thumb is feel the channels, and it doesn't quite work properly, and so the nail sticks out a bit. It turns out that at the age of 3, she didn't need to do that. She didn't know this, I mean, obviously, but you could just leave it. You can leave if a child loses the tip of their finger above the knuckle, it will regrow, and it doesn't matter if it involves bone, nerves, blood vessels, all of it will just regrow. And the reason for that is because children have stronger chi, stronger organizational energy, stronger intelligent metabolism, and so they have that ability to still regrow. And what this orthopedic surgeon found out is that as you put more energy into your brain as an animal, for some reason you lose that ability to regenerate. And so that's why us humans have pretty flimsy regeneration ability.
Phenomenal. But it's really interesting, this aspect of things, because it shows us how powerful our bodies can actually be if that energy or that life force is actually flowing correctly. Yeah,
definitely, completely. I mean, that's it. Everyone has the ability to self-heal. And that's what I think acupuncture does. It just reminds your body, hey, no, you should be going this way, or you should be doing this. It's like a kind of gentle tap on the shoulder. You're going the wrong way, come back. Instead of, a lot of the time Western medicine is just like a punch in the face. Oi, that way. Which sometimes might be the right thing to do. That's kind of the difference in approach. I mean, the body wants to be healthy, but at the same time it's also always falling out of balance.
And you say in the book that when you have strong qi, you can defeat cancer because it's the opposite of disease states, effectively.
Yeah, I'm convinced of that because exactly, that's right. It's just because qi is by definition the opposite of disease, and so it's because how I see cancer is cancer are cells in the body that have lost their connection to the body for whatever reason. So that reason might be because, for instance, genetically there was always a weak link there. And so those cells were always liable to go off. Or it could be because for 20 years you've been throwing vodka down your throat, and the cells in your throat have just had enough and have just gone their own direction. But all of these, all of cancer I see as cells that have lost their connection to the body and then turn on the body. And so if you have strong control of your cells, or strong qi, then you can defeat that.
And so fundamentally, we're talking about communication, aren't we, within the body? Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. Yeah. And communication, we know a little bit about communication because there's embryology is very interested in this because of stem cell research, and they're making massive advances in what they can do. And they know that there are substances in the body called morphogens that move between cells and tell them how to develop, i.e. one of them will, it will say, you turn into muscle, you turn into bone. But there's also an energy as well. And I found the most amazing video a couple of weeks ago. If anyone can Google this, it's frog electric face. And the Google link will take you to a New Scientist page, and on this page it will say, how does a frog's face know where it's to form? And the answer may surprise you: electricity. And so what they're finding more and more is that actually the embryological control system uses electricity, or as I call it, electricity, because it's slightly different to electricity because it's intelligent. This electricity is intelligent. It's not just like stuff from the mains. And so this is a kind of new age of medicine, I think, that's opening up, because this is the first video of qi. People who say, oh, qi doesn't exist, not real. Well, you can have a look at this video, and although it's a physical representation of qi, you can actually see the energy that's moving around in the body.
So in effect, the whole mystery that science has around acupuncture, and that it's kind of through imagination and willpower and all that business,
yes,
is actually clearly about growth, yes, organising, energy running in specific ways, and can be seen through what the Western model would see as morphogens and electrical currents.
Yeah, that's right, and fascial planes, and that's the thing. When to me now, it's so obvious that I just think, how the hell did we miss this? It's one of those. Once you map the acupuncture channels onto the pathways of fascia in the body internally, you just get this perfect match between how the Chinese say this substance qi moves and how the fascial planes in the body move. And it's like I said, it just seems so obvious that I have this conversation with doctors all the time, and you get to a point after a year or a year and a half or 2 years where you're just like, hang on, this is, I'm expecting to be shot down and told that this is a load of rubbish, but no one ever does. And the reason is because it's not. These are what the acupuncture channels are. They're fascial pathways. There's nothing more mysterious to it than that. The thing that slightly put the concept off, I think, was firstly they were called meridians, which is an awful translation, because meridians, for starters, are imaginary lines on the earth, and these are anything but imaginary. So whenever people describe them as meridians, I always say, please call them channels, which is a much better translation of Jing Luo, which is the Chinese word for the acupuncture channels. And the second thing is that the actual map of the acupuncture channels, it just looks like lines drawn on the body. But if they'd been drawn instead to mirror the fascial anatomy, which they really ideally should be, then it would have become immediately obvious what they were.
Were the original texts, they must have been hand-drawn, were they showing that they were following more the fascial lines?
Well, no, I haven't read the original text. My Chinese is appalling, and I always intended to learn it. And then I spoke to an acupuncturist called Ranald McDonald, who's just fantastic acupuncturist down in Bideford. If you ever want to see an acupuncturist, the guy has a 3-month waiting list, but it's worth waiting. And he kind of disabused me of it. He said, "Look, for starters, you can spend 20 years learning it, and then all you're going to end up doing is arguing about whether the single dot that's at the top of the character, it changes the entire meaning or not." And I was like, yeah, okay, I haven't got a lifetime to spend learning Chinese, and therefore you just have to rely on other people to read it and interpret it. And I mean, I say right at the end of the book actually as well that there is still, I gave a talk at the British Acupuncture Council, and I got a question at the end, which I only really understood after I left, from someone who was almost a bit belligerent. And I think the question was basically like, I was presenting all of this about how the fascial pathways explain the channels. And the question was, where have you read this in the classics? I think that was what the question was. And it's a ridiculous question. I mean, these classics are 2,000 years old. They're absolutely amazing books. They're some of the most amazing books in existence, but we kind of need to move on from them now, and we need to take what they've taught us and build on it and move on. And even the great Dr Wang Jui-Yi, when he kind of almost like invented this, what's called applied channel diagnosis, which is what I do when I practice acupuncture. And he was really wary of saying that, this is how I think acupuncture should be practiced, until he found a passage in the Neijing Su Wen that said, palpation of the channels is very important, and that can tell you about the disease. And then he was like, phew, now I can actually say this, because if it wasn't in these classics, it wasn't true. And it's a really kind of backwards way of looking at it.
Feel that you're a pioneer in medicine and acupuncture at the moment?
I feel I've just been very lucky to be able to have studied both acupuncture, both Chinese medicine and Western medicine, and be in an age when we can kind of understand what they were talking about. Because 50 years ago, we just wouldn't have had the ability to quite understand the connections that the Chinese were talking about at an embryological level. And I think I've just kind of been in the right place at the right time, really. But yeah, in a way, I think the book is going to change medicine. And I think it already has, actually. I think the ideas have already, people are like, yeah, that makes so much sense. So, nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So hopefully its time has come, because what it promises is we can then merge Western and Eastern medicine, and we can put Eastern medicine back where it should be, which is frontline treatment for anyone who's unwell. And then after that, if you can't fix them with acupuncture or herbs, if it's a bit more chronic, then you use Western medicine, not the other way around. We've got it the wrong way around.
I almost feel Western medicine is a hammer. It doesn't need to be used in that way. There are far more subtler ways to support the body back to good health, and I feel there should be more of a funneling towards medicine and medications and surgery and things like that, and actually the interventions of dietary and lifestyle changes quite clearly should be in place for me more early. And that's not because I'm from that field myself, but because even science shows that by changing your lifestyle, changing your diet and changing your mindset, they can have profound changes on your health. They can even change gene expression. So why would you not use them? That's what science itself shows. So why would you not use them before you would use far more expensive interventions? Expensive on so many levels, not just financially, but to the individual as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I see people who come in with shoulder problems, and I just think, well, of course, of acupuncture, I could, probably fix at least half of these. And yet, what happens in this system is they get referred to an orthopedic surgeon. Now, the clue is in the name. An orthopedic surgeon is going to want to operate, and it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's like, we're it's just all wrong. It's all back to front. It's like, hang on, let's try, simple. But partly though, and this is why, I hope the book changes things. I mean, part of the problem has been that the West has been saying, right, okay, you say there's these acupuncture channels and there's this chi. Show us this. And then when people have said, well, you can feel it, they went, no, that's no good. And then when they've looked for it, see, this is the thing, when they've looked for the channels, this is the most hilarious thing, in my opinion, is, have you ever been looking for your glasses when they're on your face, or, and then suddenly you realise, oh, God, I don't wear glasses, but sunglasses, where are my sunglasses? And it's the same with the channels. What they did is they actually opened up the body when the anatomists and surgeons were looking for the channels. They opened up the body and they used the channels to open up the body, and because these are the fascial planes. And then they were looking around, going, "There's nothing here. There's no channels. There's nothing. Where are they? Show me these channels." And the entire time they were actually using the channels to open them, which is why the title of the book used to be "What God Forgot to Tell Surgeons," because these are the same channels that surgeons use. And it's kind of faintly hilarious, actually, that they made that mistake. But you've got to forgive them, because it was probably more up to the Chinese to say that's what they were. But maybe the Chinese didn't quite realise. Maybe they aren't. Maybe I've got it wrong. It's possible I've got it wrong. But I don't think so.
Well, that's the interesting thing about it, though. It's for me, science is and medicine is meant to explore. We're meant to be curious. We're meant to be pioneers in the field. I do believe that that's what scientific research is meant to be about. But I do think that the experiential side and the unexplained side, as acupuncture would be considered, is very much more poo-pooed rather than actually explored on the experiential side. So my clients, for instance, my clinical practice would be completely poo-pooed, because my client's experience is not considered scientifically supported yet. And I feel very upset on my client's behalf in many respects, because that's almost saying my client's feelings and emotions are no longer important, but actually a scientific piece of research telling them that this supplement will benefit them is.
Yeah, and it's like the whole the so-called placebo effect, which is actually just the therapeutic encounter. And it's been, for, hopefully we can, in the next few years we can destroy this, but the placebo effect has been so dangerous and so negative towards basically medicine, because what it said is there is only truth if it's wrapped in a pill that beats the so-called placebo effect. And so that whole process that healing involves, whereby, part of the process is just going to somebody and saying, I've got a problem, and I want to talk to you about it and see what you can do about it. And that is an enormous part of the process, and then anything that you can add on, that's how I see medicine. Anything you can put on top of that is a bonus. And what Western medicine did is because it had this very easily transplantable system whereby you had an active pill or a placebo pill that you could put on top of that thing that was already there, the therapeutic encounter. And the pharmaceutical industry then just effectively went, all that really works in medicine is this active ingredient. And it's like, no, we know now that that's absolute rubbish, that actually the therapeutic encounter is probably the most important aspect of the whole thing. And really, as clinicians and as all doctors and all healthcare professionals, we just want to be, maximizing the therapeutic encounter in whatever way we can. And because of the wonderful way in which humanity is, there's many different ways of doing that, and each to their own, but obviously pharmaceutical companies, they just want to make it about an active ingredient in the pill.
It's such a shame because research shows that actually the right doctor, or the same doctors, tend to get better results, and they're the ones who actually spend more time with their clients and have more empathy with their patients. Yeah,
that's right. There was a study out showing that, because in Chinese medicine, the pancreas is considered to be kind of dysfunctional when people are seeking sympathy or don't get enough sympathy. And there was a study that showed that a sympathetic doctor would actually, in the long term, make someone's diabetes better compared to a non-sympathetic doctor. And it's and it's like, hang on, you can't wrap that up in a pill, can you? And yet, if you did, the farmer would be saying, wow, we can make a lot of money out of this. But basically all you've got is a good doctor versus a bad doctor. Now
you've referred there to the emotions linked with the organ systems. And for yourself working in acupuncture and anyone working with kind of the 5 elements, they will clearly be indicated with what's going on in certain parts of the body. Now, for the likes of yourself, you'll just think that's the norm. But actually, Western medicine and the skeptics would very much disagree with you that there's emotions linked with organs in particular. There's research out there about broken hearts.
It's a very, I don't want to be disparaging towards fellow colleagues or anything, but the idea that the brain is separate to the body is absolute nonsensical. The brain merges to the spinal cord. The spinal cord then gives off nerves that go to the organs. The organs and the nerves are basically interfacing in such a way that it's difficult to tell where one begins and one ends. The hormones that the organs release are also used as neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters in the brain are also hormones. The whole thing is completely one and the same. They're indistinguishable. Brain, spinal cord, nerves, organs. It flows both directions. And so the Chinese, when they said there were 5 principal organs, and those organs, the hormones resided in the organs, it was just a different way of looking at it, and it was an equally valid way, and actually I think a more valid way of looking at it, because the hormones are more concentrated in the organs than in the brain. So for instance, serotonin, most of the serotonin in your body, 95% of the serotonin in your body is found in your gut.
And when you start to make those connections with our clients, all of a sudden things fall in place for them. I don't know. I always map things out for my clients so that they can truly see why their health picture is the way it is, so that they feel empowered about the fact that they can undo it. And for me, it's really important for them to understand all those aspects, and that actually their thinking is an important part of them getting well. Never mind the diet, never mind how their lifestyle changes and the hydration and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like the power of the mind. I mean, if I kind of have a infection or something, I kind of mentally visualize the white cells just going in there and causing havoc, and I think that works. And even if it doesn't work. Just the fact that I think it works probably means that it does work.
Well, the thing is if how can it not work in that positive way if in negative ways the research shows that actually people who have just had a bereavement are more likely to have heart attacks and things like that. Broken hearts. And the heart. You talk about the heart transplant people. And the behavioural changes in a lot of detail in the book, which I just feel is absolutely fascinating. Do you want to expand on that? Because the story of Carter and Jelly, the story of Carter and Jerry is amazing, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, that whenever I read that, it brings tears to my eyes. Actually, it's just it's heartbreaking. It really is, and in Chinese medicine, the heart is seen as the centre of our soul. And what I think they're describing is the heart has this ability to connect to people, and it does this in the same way that your mobile phones connect through electromagnetic radiation. And this is the hilarious thing often about skeptics. You'll have a skeptic who's on the phone, saying, the idea that extrasensory perception is just absolute nonsense. It's rubbish. But it's not. In fact, it's completely irrational to believe anything else, because as your heart, every time it beats, it creates this very powerful electromagnetic pulse that propagates out at the speed of light. So since I began this sentence, my heart energies permeated every single living creature on this planet. And what I think actually happens is when you spend a lot of time with somebody else, for instance, families, your two hearts actually start connecting, and they almost, in science they call it quantum entanglement, where two substances, they thought this had only occurred at atomic level, but they've entangled two diamonds as well, because they're crystals, and the two diamonds actually become like one. And it starts to sound like a Spice Girl song, doesn't it? But this is what the poets talk about. That two become one, and that people's hearts are in love, and all these kind of things. And I think what's happening there is a kind of electro-quantum effect, and this isn't wishy-washy science. This is the same kind of energy that you use when you use a mobile phone. And until we had mobile phones 30, 40 years ago, you probably, scientists would have poo-pooed the idea of being able to communicate at distance with electromagnetism, or, well, maybe 200 years ago. And then so you've already got this ability for two hearts to connect through electromagnetism. And then I think there's also something extra, which is the quantum effect of like being in love, which is why something's happened, And I remember I was listening to the Jeremy Vine show, which is like the Daily Mail for BBC Two for anyone who's not from England, and it was which isn't a good thing, by the way. But, there was a woman on there, and she was talking about her son's suicide. It was just heartbreaking. But she said she was in the cinema, and she suddenly developed this terrible chest pain, and she actually thought, oh my God, what's happened? And then the next thing was, I need to go to the hospital because I think I'm having a heart attack. And then when she got home, she found her son had killed himself, and that's not coincidence. That's because her heart and her son's heart were connected, and it's very upsetting, actually, that kind of thing. But so I kind of think that the heart is the center of the soul, and Western medicine is preoccupied with finding what's going on in the brain, but I actually think the heart is the key. And
you do refer to the story of Carter and Jerry. Do you want to just go through that for my audience?
That's the one with the little boy who has a heart transplant, and it's about a little boy who gets the heart of another little boy who's died, and this was something I found in a journal, and it was basically stories about this. It was a proper scientific journal, stories about heart transplants. And the story goes that the mother, who was actually a doctor, they met up with the family. It was part of the kind of grieving process, because it would help them realize that their son had kind of not died for, his heart had gone to someone, he kept someone else alive, so it would help them overcome the grief. And actually the first thing that happened when they saw this new boy was the little boy ran up to her, the mother, and, hugged her and said, "Mummy." And, he didn't know who this woman was at all. It could have been just anybody. And they kind of, the mum kind of knew that it was still Carter inside this little boy, even though it was actually a little boy called Jerry. And the mother of the donor also knew that there was something funny going on, that basically, her little boy didn't behave like this, and recognized the dad without even seeing him. And so it was like the heart was actually contained the soul of the little boy that had died. It gets very strange, because you start thinking, well, who's actually alive in that child? Is it the Carter, or is it Jerry, or is it both? And it's kind of, but it's very strange.
Well, the stories of people who've had transplants, there are many stories, aren't there? And it's treated almost anecdotally.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
actually that does support the fact that there are emotions linked with our tissues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the heart is the ability to connect to other people. I think that's what it is. And people who've lost their heart, there are people out there who actually have purely mechanical hearts now, like iron hearts. And the funny thing is, there was one guy who's a psychotherapist who was one of the first people with a completely iron heart, and he just, as a psychotherapist, he kind of was quite aware of his feelings and stuff, and he just said he just stopped caring about other people. His grandchildren would come and visit, and he'd just be like, he actually said, "Oh well, he was just thinking, well, I'll be dead soon, so why should I bother?" And these were like grandchildren that he loved, or he did love, but he just, he was literally cold-hearted, and I think he ended up wanting to kill himself.
Wow.
It was that, it was like living without a heart is just, you become heartless. And so the heart, all of the organs have like emotions associated with them, but the heart is, there's a reason why poets have always talked about it.
So in effect, the Chinese doctors of acupuncture, they know what they're talking about. Yeah, they do, exactly. That's it. They got it right first time round. This is why it's unchanged. This is, it was always used as a kind of a stick to beat Chinese medicine with. It was like, well, it's 3,000 years old. It's old medicine. It's nonsense. It's it's a bit like saying, oh, the wheel is 3,000 years old, useless, old technology. But the thing is, it is 3,000 years old, and it's completely unchanged. Yeah.
And the reason it's completely unchanged is because it was right first time.
Yeah.
and one of the problems is actually, I think, and this is why the classics, it's time to kind of move on from the classics, is those books are so old that it's very difficult to accurately interpret them, and you can end up just becoming fixated on the position of one dot, and it's better to just, this is what I hope the book kind of achieves, is to move things forward and say, okay, right, now let's understand the body in this way that is completely coherent with Western medicine, but also completely loyal and faithful to the traditions of Chinese medicine. Not necessarily the words from Neijing Su Wen, but the traditions, which I think is more important.
I think there's room for it all. And I think that it's about enabling choice and a clear path where the individuals actually is enabled to actually help themselves to resolve things first and foremost, before it becomes almost the Western medicine approach where we're ending up taking parts of the body away. I just think there has to be a better way to get to that point, which is as I've said before, far more expensive on a number of different levels. I love the fact that you talk about in the book the fact that the body is just more than a functional machine, which is what you show, and those stories about the heart and the emotions attached to the tissues. Truly show. It's more to the body than meets the eye, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've become really brain centric in this world. It's all about the brain, and everyone's like PET scans and MRI scans, trying to work out where everything in the brain is and where love is in the brain. And it's like the brain's just like a processing unit, I think. It's just like but actually all of the emotions are sitting in the body, and the brain is just there processing the information and feedbacking, and so there's no otherwise. The old saying is, don't let your heart rule your head. But you need a heart still. But yes, you need to make some sane, rational decisions about what you should do with what your heart is telling you. But sometimes, who cares? You just go with your heart, don't you? And that's life. I mean, that's the glorious nature of life. But in Western medicine, that kind of going with your heart would just be seen as irrational and, nonsensical and and that's where Western medicine sits. It's kind of so cold, and, that's why they think all the answer lies in trials, whereas actually, as every person is an individual, and every person you need to tailor the treatment to them. And some people, might just need a hand on their shoulder to say, look, you need to go this direction. And some people do need a punch in the face,
but also
metaphorically.
For me, the Western approach is very much to segregate the body into parts, and actually, what you're showing here is that actually we can't do that. The tissues are throughout, the fascia is throughout, the collagen is throughout. It is just woven through us, isn't it? Therefore, decision making, our emotions are just integral. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, I mean, in Chinese medicine, they say the gallbladder is manages your, it's the decision maker. And I agree completely. It's I mean, where are the smile cells in the body? Where are those cells in the brain that tell you to smile? There aren't any. And it's because we're a whole, and you can't. That's when. They've got down now to the point of genetics. They've reduced so far. They've gone all the way down where they can actually tell you the individual atoms that make up, the instruction manual in your cell. And yet, have there been any cures from genetic science yet after 20 years? Every now and again, there's something that's very, very precise, and like someone who's got a particular one little gene that's wrong, and that's about it. And even those aren't great cures, or if they work, they are, but they don't work the whole time. And yet, that's the failure of reductionism, because just because you examine something in microscopic detail, it doesn't mean that you're going to understand it any better, because you suddenly get lost in detail. And we're, that's why I think the therapeutic encounter, the placebo effect, is so important, because it's somebody looking at the whole person, and so when naturopaths, they look at the whole person, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas doctors are trained to reduce.
And also, I look at the communication the body is giving to me, and you must do the same, because the body gives off. It will tell you where it's ill and things like this, and where it's feeling discomfort, and where the energy's lower, and I know that when I interact with some of my clients, that with just having a conversation, they will walk out the door and say, I feel so much better.
Yeah, right.
And this is where this is where I had to start to understand that actually we are highly intelligent communication machines that are working at cellular level to interact on so many different levels. And it's not just about what we hand over in regards to what we think the individual should do. It's about that interaction of energy, which is just completely unexplainable, but is fundamentally what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? So important. And how do you, I mean, if you're going to like start doing trials and studies on that, then you just have to do it on an individual basis, which is kind of what people have done for thousands and thousands of years. It's called, building up a practice, isn't it? And people say he or she is good. And this would be a much better way of studying acupuncture and naturopathy and all those things. If we're, if in future the study should concentrate on really almost like an X Factor style practitioner versus practitioner, and seeing which practitioner is better, and then going, okay, what's this practitioner doing that's getting such great results, rather than just taking 10 naturopaths together and then or 10 acupuncturists, and some of them might be great, some of them might be awful, and then the results are mixed, aren't they? So much better, because it's 10 different effects. It's not a pill. You're not giving the same pill. You're giving like you say, you're communicating at a very deep level, and I would love to do that, to take some of the best, for instance, acupuncturists and kind of reality TV and and actually see what they're doing that's getting such great results, and then we can learn from that, and we can try and teach that to people, and a lot of it I think will actually be kind of almost unteachable.
And I think that links with something that you talk about in the body, which is the light emitted from the body, and that the biophoton activity that happens, because I think a lot of it is down to the energetics, as I see them. I'm talking about it from my perspective, and the fact that we emit light. And I think that is a key communicator between not only ourselves but other individuals.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite amazing that we do emit light, isn't it? I mean, it's I mean, you wouldn't believe it really if somebody hadn't kind of shown it. I read this interesting thing the other day, actually, that we actually produce more energy per gram than the sun does. It's quite amazing, isn't it? You would never imagine it, but obviously we're a lot smaller than the sun, so we don't start burning up at 10,000 degrees. But yeah, we emit more energy per gram, and and so we're also emitting light. And I mean, that again, it's what is going on there. It's just there's something like 10 studies on that that I could find. And you just think, hang on, there's probably like 1,000 studies on statins, for instance, and yet, we've got light coming out of our bodies. Why is it coming out? What's it doing? Can it communicate with other people, and can we manipulate it? I agree. I think it's something to do with, I think it's to do with the mitochondria, because the mitochondria have this same book that is called Power, Sex and Suicide, which is just a brilliant title for a book. And it gets a bit dry in parts, but it is interesting if you've got that kind of bent towards scientific view of the body. And it says that across the mitochondria, the potential difference there, the electrical potential difference, is the same as across a lightning bolt. And so they think that this light that comes out of the body is caused by these mitochondria, like electrons just flitting across this potential difference, and when they flit across, they emit light in the same way a lightning bolt would, which is why the light coming out of our bodies is in the same range as lightning bolts, and why the evil emperor in Star Wars, he had lightning coming out of his fingers, didn't he? So it's interesting. It's all kind of there in the deep down in our kind of culture, these ideas.
And you do talk about the fact that the channels of chi in the body end at the fingernails, where the light emissions tend to be the strongest.
Yeah. For a while, actually, I tried to link, the light into the channels, and that maybe the actual light was traveling along these channels as well, these fascial channels. But eventually, whether it's true or not, there wasn't really any evidence to support this. And the one thing I didn't want to do in my book was to put things in that would allow skeptics to basically point at it and go, look at that, he's talking absolute rubbish, what a load of old bull, so therefore the whole of the book is nonsense. So I didn't want to, and that's why I didn't put much about quantum mechanics in as well.
Yeah. Because
you can easily, the danger you can make with quantum mechanics is you can just use it to explain anything you want, which is why they used it to explain the magic bullet theory in JFK's assassination. But yeah, so I only use it once, and that's to do with the heart. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what's going on. That's what love is. It's a quantum effect, which is your two hearts get linked.
Well, I have to say, you've lit up my life today. That's been absolutely fascinating. That was really corny, wasn't it?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure chatting, and yeah.
You'll have to come back on sometime. It has been extremely enjoyable, absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
So how do people get hold of your book?
Yeah, it's available on if you're Amazon, I suppose, but I mean, better to walk into a bookshop, and order it there. But it's called The Spark in the Machine. It's published by Jessica Kingsley Publications, and yeah, it's getting good reviews. And if you're interested in kind of Eastern or Western medicine, or if you just want to kind of see a different view of the body and a different view of what cancer is and how you can keep the body healthy, then I think you really enjoy it. It's not written for scientists or for doctors. I actually wrote it for the general public because to change things, I think it's more powerful if you can get people talking about it rather than just kind of doctors and acupuncturists.
This is a book that mentions Star Wars, electricity, loving it, and the Spancreas, which I just cried over. The joining of words are just fantastic. It's been my absolute pleasure to speak to you today.
Thank you. Okay, well, look forward to speaking again.